Good afternoon. How are you guys? Thank you for joining me for yet another, we'll call this a Zen and the Art of Competitive Eating, I guess. So, another one of those cool things that I saw when I was at the grocery outlet store yesterday were these kind of cool looking macaron snack-like selections. And I've never actually had macaron cookies, so I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what they're all about. Really tiny package, about 100 grams. So this is probably going to be just about the smallest amount of food that I eat in one of these lunch live streams. Let me see, 3 servings per container. One serving is 3 macarons, and one serving is 165 calories. So yeah, pretty light today, but I figured it'd be cool to try something new, if nothing else. Macarons, nice. I think they're like a whipped egg white and almond flour cookies, something like that. So I am looking forward to checking them out, seeing what they're all about. So here we are, once again, hanging out, working from home, doing these live streams. As per usual, eating crazy stuff, talking about whatever happens to pop up in my mind. And today, I wanted to talk about something that's kind of goofy, kind of funny, the kind of stuff that people usually eat when they're doing ultra endurance challenges. And these are things like running ultra marathons, riding their bike hundreds of miles. I've done a couple of Ironman triathlons, so that's, and I have actually run an ultra marathon, so I've done a decent amount of ultra endurance, ultra distance endurance stuff in my time. And it always is kind of fascinating to see what kind of stuff that people eat when they're doing these ultra endurance races, stuff like that. But before anything else, I want to try one of these cookies because they look absolutely delicious. So we've got pistachio, strawberry, and lemon cookies. Ooh, that sounds very good. I don't think that's going to stay up, so it's going to stay there. All right, let's try one of these lemon cream cookies. The cream in the middle is a little bit gloopy. I wonder if it's just a little bit too warm in my house right now to be eating these. It has been awfully warm and humid lately. Oh, wow. That is very cool. And a nice tart flavor, too. I really like that. That is delicious. If you've ever had, like, a lemon cooler or something like that, I think this is even more tart than that. Definitely got a lot of lemon flavor coming through that. Oh, very good. Not super sweet. That texture on it, nice and crisp on the outside. Exactly what you'd want a macaron to be, so I've been told. It is a very pleasant texture, too. I like that a lot. Oh my goodness. I'm definitely going to have to look into what it takes to make a macaron and see if I can't make some of my own, because that is super good. Let's see. These pistachio ones are kind of a disconcerting color. I think they're showing up quite like iridescent green, like actually a quite nice color on the camera. But in front of me, yeah, it kind of looks like gloopy, boogery green. Not super pleasing, but I'm pretty I'm stoked to try these things. So I hope the flavor's pretty good. Don't get a whole lot of pistachio in that, even though it does say that these are made with pistachio nuts, which is unfortunate, but so it goes. All right, guys, I hope everybody's doing good in the lockdown. I know that lockdown kind of means different things for different places in America right now, different things for different places around the world. Right now, things are opening up. I am scheduled to run a marathon in about 4 weeks on July 26th, I think. On July 26th, I believe that's when the marathon is. So yeah, just like realizing that a lot of races have been canceled up until this date throughout the year, I'm kind of like back and forth on whether I think this race is going to get canceled. I hope it doesn't get canceled. I'm going to be a pacer at this race. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've been pacing this race a couple of years, but it did bring to mind the kind of crazy things that some people eat in their ultra endurance stuff. Produce Not Pills, thank you for joining the live stream today. It's been a while, man. Asking, am I ready for my marathon? Man, I hope so. I'm a pacer, so I need to be running 8-minute miles like clockwork. That's what my goal pace is. That's what the pace is that I signed up to run anyway. And 8-minute miles isn't super tough, and it's a marathon that is very, very popular for people who want to qualify to run like their personal best or a Boston qualifying marathon, stuff like that. Because the marathon is actually 100% downhill. Starts at the top of Snoqualmie Pass in Washington State and ends at a town called North Bend, or around a town called North Bend anyway. So the entire thing is just a little bit downhill. Anyway, beyond the marathon, I have actually done a lot of like ridiculous endurance stuff. So a couple of years ago, I did this ridiculous endurance ride called Ramrod. In 2015. Man, it has been a while since I've done Ramrod. It is a notoriously difficult ride. Here's Mount Rainier in the middle of this map. Can I expand this? Yes, I can. The ride starts in this town called Enumclaw. You ride for about 75 miles, and then you actually ride through the Mount Rainier National Park roads, which is really, really cool. And you can see the elevation graphs here. There's a couple of just gigantic hills. Like I think this first one, let's see, it starts at around mile 39 and ends at mile 74. So that's almost 40 miles of consistent uphill. And then this ultra, ultra steep ride up through here. And then riding down the backside of this, I remember was so fast. Like you got going so freaking fast. Riding down the backside of this hill. It's just basically downhill all the way home. But I do remember around mile 110 or so was what they called the lunch stop, which was where everybody basically got to sit down, make sandwiches, eat a lot of normal food, because up until that point, everybody was probably pretty freaking tired of eating energy gels, energy bars, stuff like that, like Gatorade, stuff like that you would eat normally in a race, and so on and so forth. And I remember sitting down and cracking open a cold can of V8, and it was like the best thing I had ever drunk in my entire life. It tasted so good. Because, let's see, this day I remember was very, very hot, and riding up this second mountain here, I was completely exposed in the sun, so by the time I got to the top, like, I was in really bad shape. I was very dehydrated. I was sweating a whole lot. I was actually pushing myself quite hard because I wanted to get to the top before noon. And if I remember right, I got to the top around 12:20 or 12:30 or something like that, so I just barely missed it. But yeah, I was totally depleted of sweat and electrolytes and everything like that. So when I drank down that V8, just goes to show that, like, V8, ton of salt in that stuff, just goes to show that yeah, if you have the right food, it's not always like conventional race energy foods, but if you do have the right food, it definitely tastes amazing, tastes wonderful. And I can't remember what I actually had to eat after that. I actually drove out to this podunk little town, Enumclaw, the morning of the race, and left after the race to go home. So it was like several hours of, this little town right here, Enumclaw. So it was like, maybe like an hour and a half to drive out. Then I rode my bike for 10 hours, and then it was like an hour and a half to drive home. And I don't know why, but in every single one of these really, really super long races that I do, I am always super dehydrated afterwards, regardless of how much I eat and drink and stuff like that. I'm going to try one of these strawberries macarons, actually. That strawberry macaron has a very interesting flavor. Oh my goodness, it tastes like candy. I think that is artificial strawberry flavoring. Delicious. Actually, I do like the artificial strawberry flavors. I think they actually taste pretty good. A lot more than I like some other artificial flavors, like caramel, peppermint, just terrible artificial flavors. Produce Nut Pills, you ask if people eat macaroons for ultra sports. Well, I think if you're talking about the macaroons that are like shaved coconut and sweetened condensed milk that are kind of like mashed together in those little balls. I think that might actually be not too uncommon to see out there. Now these ones, the macarons, the like French cookies, I've never seen these on an ultra in an ultra race. I would be very surprised to ever see them because these are a very hoity-toity snack. They're actually quite good though. I like them. So another interesting race that I think is pretty cool. I do actually remember what I ate after this one. This was in Naples, Florida, back in 2016. The last, or I should say the most recent, which is possibly going to be the last full distance triathlon that I ever did. Ugh, Naples, Florida. Ugh. It's a terrible place to visit, guys. I remember being in Naples, Florida. It was just old people who didn't know how to drive all over the place. Oh my goodness. Let's see. So this was a full distance triathlon, which starts with a 2.4 mile swim. Look at that. Yay. Swimming around the ocean. This was actually kind of a funny swim. I did 2 laps of this 1.2 mile course. And there were several distances all racing at the same time. So the full distance guys doing their 2.4 mile swim, which was 2 laps around this, while the half distance guys, or the long distance guys, were doing the 1.2 mile swim, which is just 1 loop around. So I do remember that first loop around, there's like 500 people in the water, all swimming shoulder to shoulder. And I like to say that it was just a giant game of grab ass. I mean, the entire time. It's just, you were accidentally like slapping people, and there were people behind you like grabbing at your legs and slapping you in the butt and everything. Like, of course it was all unintentional. Like, nobody was really ferocious about it. It was just super packed. And then the second time around, I was completely by myself. Like, I was worried that I was off course because I didn't see anyone. And then 6 hours of one of the most boring bike rides I have ever done. Oh my goodness. The Florida interior is so freaking boring. Just absolutely nothing going on. And then a very, very slow marathon. I think for the first 2 legs of full distance triathlon, you're going to be seeing like pretty normal, nominal stuff. Some of the fuels that I would always rely on these races, like 2 of my staples that I ate quite a bit of. I've talked about this stuff in the past before. Generation UCAN snack bars. These were kind of nice to munch on while I was on the bike, because like just eating energy gels all day and drinking Gatorade and stuff, and drinking like liquid fuels and kind of the like syrupy fuels, it just gets boring. Like, you just feel like you really want to chew something. So having these little snack bars that are really low glycemic. They don't spike your blood sugar, but they do give you a little drip of I should say, a little drip of carbohydrates. So you do get those carbohydrates that'll keep your glycogen stores going, but they don't spike your blood sugar. So you're still in like this fat burning aerobic zone, basically. So you're sparing your glycogen as well as replenishing it. And then this Vegas Sport, there's nothing super special about this. It's just an electrolyte drink mix with no calories. So this is what I would rely on if I wanted to get my salt and stuff up without eating a ton of carbohydrate. So yeah, I remember I had one of those energy bars maybe once every 60 minutes or 90 minutes, and I just drank so much of that the Vega Sports Hydrator, stuff like that. Produce Not Pills, you're asking why it's the last? 'Cause it's really hard to train for those things. I mean, they take so much time and energy. Like, when you do train for a full distance triathlon, it basically eats up your life for like 6 months. You become a hermit. You become really uninteresting, and it's a very it's a very selfish pursuit, I gotta say. So it's something that I'm not terribly interested in doing again. And at the end of this last one, I was not able to train as much as I wanted to, and I remember crossing the finish line of this run. Let's see, this run had kind of a weak, well, I guess it was an all right running course. It was a 10K running course that you did 4 loops around, so that would have been nicer if it was a longer running course, so you wouldn't be running over the same stuff over and over and over again. But anyway, when you do get into the run, that's where you see the more interesting stuff. And when I did cross the finish line, like, my quads felt like somebody had just like flayed open my legs with a knife. Like, I was in such excruciating pain by the end of it. It's like I can't recommend it to anyone. Like, it's full distance triathlon is just dumb. Like, I'm just gonna say it's just dumb. Like, nobody should ever do this stuff. I mean, like, doing an Olympic distance triathlon or even a long distance triathlon, I think is great because, like, you get to the finish line, you feel like you accomplished something really cool, and then you've got the rest of the day to celebrate. But this was my fastest full distance triathlon of the 3 that I did. And I finished it in just under 12 hours, and the sun had gone down. Like, it was night. It was legit nighttime by the time that I had finished this race. So it was like I got to the finish line, very anticlimactic finish, and I wanted to go straight to bed. So there was no celebrating. There was just like, I dragged myself to my hotel, cleaned up all of the crap that I had accumulated for the race, my bike gear and my swimming gear and everything like that, laid everything out to dry and get clean. And I just felt awful. Like, I just laid in bed for the entire night, just feeling terrible. I got, I think, 2 or 3 hours of sleep that night. Oh, I should say, during this run. Anyway, that's where I mentioned that's where you start seeing some of the more interesting fuels come out. That's where you'll see, like, chips, pretzels, soda pop comes out. I don't know why, but flat Coca-Cola is like a staple for full distance triathlon. Like, you see flat Coca-Cola at just about every single full distance triathlon on, like, aid stations. Those are the stations where you run by and you can, like, pick up a little Dixie cup of water or something like that that are provided by the race. So you don't have to carry everything with you the entire time. And I remember in this race specifically, about a mile into this, was it a 6 mile loop? Yes, it was a 6 mile loop. But about a mile into it, there was this aid station right around there that had, little Dixie cups of Coca-Cola. And I ran by it the first time thinking, like, you know what? I've had so much caffeine already. I don't want to put any more in my stomach. I didn't feel up to drinking any Coca-Cola. And I figured that, like, I really wanted to. Like, it looked really tasty. But I thought, well, I'll save it for the last loop. So I just do that. So I did 3 loops. And then as I was approaching this guy at the aid station for my final loop, I remember running up and seeing that all the Dixie cups of Coca-Cola were gone. So he just had, like, little Dixie cups of water. And I ran up, just like, looked really forlorn at this guy, just thinking, like, where's all the soda? Do you have any more soda? And he's like, oh, good job, man. You're doing great. You look so great. You look so strong. I'm sorry. We're all out of Coca-Cola. And I was so distraught. I was so destroyed. I was so, like, depleted of everything that I almost broke down crying in front of this guy because I couldn't get my Coca-Cola that I've been looking forward to. And like, I legit, like, walked away from. I'm very glad that I had big aviator glasses on because I may or may not have actually shed a tear. Mm. Mm. Okay, anyway, so unfortunately, I did not get my Coca-Cola for that race. But like I said, after the race, I was destroyed. Like, I hung out at the finish line for, like, maybe an hour chatting with some of the other athletes, and it was a very sparse finish line. Like, there were only 49 or 50 people doing the full distance triathlon, so not even very many people to talk to. That night, like I said, I went to bed. I only got about 3 hours of sleep. Woke up in the middle of the night and ate like 5 protein bars or something ridiculous like that because I was starving, absolutely starving, later that day. And I remember the next day, I went to a local bar. I can't remember what the name of the bar is, that offered a restaurant eating challenge. If I remember right, it was called like the Army Challenge, something like that. Had a couple of burgers, a couple of fried macaroni and cheese bricks, basically. I can't remember what they were. A big pile of fries. It was a very interesting eating challenge. One of the easiest eating challenges I've ever done. Let's see if they have those stats on this page. Yeah. So during this triathlon, it says that I burned 9,500 calories. So the next day, I was so depleted. Yeah, I got this eating challenge that brought out the platter, and I basically just like just inhaled it just so easily. And of course, ordered dessert afterwards. So doing some crazy stuff. I do have to say, during a race, I'm always very careful to make sure that I'm not eating too much protein, not eating too much fat. I wouldn't say that I avoid the fat too much. I do eat like nuts and nut-based energy bars and stuff like that. So I do eat a decent amount of fat, but at least low protein. I try to meter my caffeine as much as possible, and yeah, with the carbohydrate, I'm pretty liberal with that. I mean, you're running, you're cycling, whatever, you're burning a ton of energy, so you don't have to worry too much about like getting more sugar than you need. Now, some people out there, when they're doing ultra distance races, especially ultra marathoners, are very notorious for like eating just the craziest, most insane stuff. And I think Dean Karnazes, this cat, he might be like he's probably the guy who like brought ultra marathon running to the masses, like brought it up to general consciousness with people. Interesting story about how Dean Karnazes got his start. I think this first paragraph is a pretty good description of it. So let's see. Dean Karnazes. This is what I'm reading right here. Dean Karnazes was a slobbering drunk. It was his 30th birthday, and he'd started with a beer and moved on to tequila shots at a bar near his home in San Francisco. Now, after midnight, an attractive woman, not his wife, was hitting on him. This was not the life he'd imagined himself. He was a corporate hack desperately running the rat race. The company had just bought him a new Lexus, and he wanted to vomit. Karnazes resisted this urge and instead slipped out the bar's back door and walked a few blocks back to his house. And I should say, like, Dean Karnazes, up to this point, not a super athletic guy. Like, I think he did some running in high school. Then he basically like went in the corporate world and never ran again until this point. So let's see. So yeah, he walked back a few blocks back to his house. On the back porch, he found an old pair of sneakers. He stripped down to his t-shirt and underwear, laced up the shoes, and started running. Seemed like a good idea at the time. Moving on. He sobered up in Daly City, about 15 miles south. It was nearly 4 in the morning. The air was cool, slightly damp from the fog, and Karnazes was in a residential neighborhood burping tequila with no pants on. He felt ridiculous, but it brought a smile to his face. He hadn't had this much fun in a long time, so he decided to keep running. So on that fateful night, he actually ran 30 miles, I believe. Dean Karnazes, he's got a ton of really, really entertaining books. If you ever want to read some like ridiculous stories about ultra running and stuff like that, you can check out 26.2 or Ultra Marathon Man, two different books by Dean Karnazes. He's written a bunch of really, really entertaining books. I like his stuff. He's kind of a divisive figure, but I think he's pretty cool. So let's see. This article goes on to list a couple of the, make a list of the different things that Dean Karnazes suggests for people who want to kind of get in touch with their more wild selves. And he's gone on to do lots of really insane stunts. He's run the Badwater 135, which is a 135-mile race in the middle of the summer through Desert Valley, California, or Death Valley, California. So it's extraordinarily hot. And he's run, several 100-mile ultramarathon, stuff like that. And earlier in his career, he was really famous for, eating junk. That's it. Eat junk. Lots of it. So again, I want to show you a picture of this guy. This is Dean Karnazes back in 2008. Like he's a pretty beefy looking guy. Not super fat. Not super skinny by any means either. So let's see. You wouldn't believe the stuff Karnazes consumes on a run. He carries a cell phone and regularly orders an extra large Hawaiian pizza. The delivery car waits for him at an intersection, and he gets there. And when he gets there, he grabs the pie and rams the whole thing down his gullet on the go. The trick: rolled up for easy scarfing. He'll chase the pizza with cheesecake, cinnamon buns, chocolate eclairs, and all natural cookies. So basically what he would do is he would get this pizza delivered to him in the middle of these massive training runs that he would do, and he'd roll it up like a little pizza burrito and just like eat it like a pizza burrito. Oh my goodness. That's basically what he's known for. And his daily let's see, in his daily diet, it's a little bit more tame. Karnazes maintains a monkish diet, eating grilled salmon 5 nights a week. He strictly avoids processed sugars, processed sugars, and fried foods. No cookies or donuts. He even tries to stay clear of too much fruit because it contains a lot of sugar. He believes this approach, which nutritionists call a slow-carb diet, has reshaped him, lowering his body fat and building a lean muscle. It also makes him look forward to running a race because he can eat whatever he wants. So Dean Karnazes, one of those crazy guys who will eat just about anything while he's running. I think in the last decade or so, he's kind of toned that down, where he's now eating a lot more healthfully when he's out running, stuff like that. I don't know if he's eating too many macarons, but there you go. And he did actually do this really cool stunt a couple of years ago, running an ultramarathon called the Spartathlon, which was supposed to be the original run that Phidippides did from Athens to Sparta, which was about 150 miles one way. Pardon me. I think it's about 150 miles, thereabouts. I think the race, the Spartathlon, is about 150 miles anyway. And he did the entire thing. He said that he wanted to eat the same stuff that Phidippides was eating. So he ate this stuff, I believe it was called pastili, which is basically a mixture of tahini or sesame seed paste. Yeah, sesame seed paste and honey. So it's very interesting, the different kinds of things that guy's done. Now, on the other end of the spectrum is this guy, Jim Walmsley, who's one of the best ultramarathon runners in recent years. I think the guy can run like a 2:15 or a 2:20 marathon or something like that. So he's this incredibly fast guy who's shown up and broken all kinds of 100-mile course records, stuff like that. I think the 100-mile distance, which I think that's basically what his bread and butter is. Pardon me. That last macaron gave me a little bit of cotton mouth. So this guy's a bit on the other end of the spectrum, where he says that during a race, let me see, the sport of ultra running is reserved for athletes, blah, blah, blah. Walmsley is arguably America's best ultramarathon runner at the moment, and during his runs, he tries to consume close to 300 to 400 calories per hour, mainly through sports drinks and energy gels that he slips and slurps along the way. And I think that's this is pretty typical foods. Like, he's probably eating, Power Bar energy gels, Roctane energy gels, Gatorade, stuff like that. Very, very typical stuff that you'd see for like marathon running, that kind of thing. And then he says that, pardon me. Let me see. Oh, it does say that at later checkpoints in the Western States endurance run, this is not him, but some runners will eat sandwiches and drink sodas and pocket crackers, stuff like that. But yeah, I think Walmsley mainly sticks to the energy gels, things along those lines. So, interestingly, his daily diet, so this is like the exact opposite of Dean Karnazes, where in his daily diet, Jim Walmsley, he really enjoys indulging in pizza and beer, which is not the kind of thing I think Dean would be eating nowadays. So moving on with this, he says, we're not talking once a month, a cheat meal, or a Friday night meal with friends. Walmsley says that pizza with an icy cold beer is nearly a daily staple in his diet. I eat pizza about once a day or 5 times per week for either lunch or dinner, Walmsley says. While he has gear sponsors like most runners, Walmsley also has deals with local shops in Arizona that fit his nutritional needs, including Pizza Clara. I didn't know this. Looks like he's sponsored by a pizza restaurant a local wood-fire Neapolitan pizza spot, and Mother Road Brewing Company, which crafts beer in Flagstaff. Oh, that's awesome. He's got a beer sponsor and a pizza sponsor. That's incredible. Oh, my goodness. Oh my goodness. So crazy, crazy stuff. So it does run the gamut. I think that ultra athletes, they can kind of get away with it when they're eating or when they're burning so many thousands of calories every single day. I am not burning nearly that many calories nowadays, so I got to be a little bit more strict with my daily diet. Thus, having the indulgence, which is, I think this is about 500 calories or so, so not a huge indulgence. Mm. So, lots of silly stuff in the world of ultra endurance. Eating all kinds of crazy things. Maybe one of these days I'll do like a Dean Karnazes eating challenge or something like that. Try to eat myself a pizza burrito and follow it with some cheesecake and cinnamon buns. That would be kind of funny. All right, guys. Thank you for hanging out with me for lunch. I always appreciate it. This is always a fun time to talk with you guys, to talk about whatever random stuff comes to mind. Entertaining topics. I do want to try to focus a little bit more on food, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, this is kind of zen in the art of competitive eating, which means that a lot of these is not going to be about competitive eating. All right, guys. Until next time, until tomorrow, I hope you guys stay safe, stay happy, stay hungry, all those good things. And until then, peace out. I'll see you guys tomorrow afternoon for yet another live stream.